Hi, I'm Bita Sadie from Food Industry Consulting. In this video, we will provide an introduction and review the main components of the new Safe Food for Canadians regulations. To find out if the SFCR is affecting your business, the first step would be to use the various interactive tools available online to figure out if and when you need to comply with the new regulations and whether you need a license, a preventive control plan, and find out what traceability requirements apply to you. The next step is to create a business profile on MyCFIA and apply for licensing if this does apply to you. In order to apply for licensing, you will need to comply with the new regulations, which consists of 16 parts. Let's take a look. The first part is the interpretation. This part reviews the definitions of key terms used in the regulations. Part 2 is trade. The second part establishes which businesses need to be licensed by the CFIA based on their activities. It also sets the rules around trading food internationally and interprovincially. Most likely, you would need a license if you are importing food or food products, manufacturing, processing, treating, preserving, grading, packaging or labeling food for export or to be sent across provincial or territorial borders, exporting food, slaughtering food animals from which meat products are derived for export or to be sent across provincial or territorial borders, or storing and handling a meat product in its imported condition for inspection by the CFIA. You would need to sign up for MyCFIA to apply for licensing. Part 3, licenses. There are two divisions within Part 3. The first division is general application requirements for the issuing, renewing, and amending of a license and rules relating to workship for slaughtering food animals and conducting regulated activities related to meat products, as well as the requirements related to suspension and cancellation. The second division is for inspection services, food animals, and meat products. Part 4, preventive controls. Part 4 contains the majority of the food safety requirements, with a focus on complying with the requirements of GMPs in sections 50 to 81, Food Safety Preventive Control Plan, and Market Fairness Preventive Control Plan. A Food Safety Preventive Control Plan, or PCP, needs to include hazard analysis, which is the determination and control of all biological, chemical, and physical hazards that present a risk of contamination to the food. The PCP is set to be outcome-based, therefore validation, verification, and documentation of the necessary control measures are required. In addition, you may also need to comply with the Market Fairness PCP to include control measures relating to compliance with requirements for packaging, labeling, grading, standards of identity, and the humane treatment of food animals for meat products. Pay attention to Division 3 in Part 4 for low-acid food packaged in a hermetically sealed container, not kept refrigerated or frozen after processing. A scheduled process needs to be applied to this type of product. Part 4, Division 5 requires an investigation of a potential non-compliance or food safety issue and immediate notification to the CFIA. It also requires that written procedures be in place to handle and investigate complaints, as well as written recall procedures be in place to remove any affected foods from the distribution chain. Part 5 is all about traceability. The SFCR will require businesses to trace their food based on Codex Alimentarius principles, which is to trace food one step forward to the person whom the food was provided and one step backward to the immediate supplier. This part outlines the requirements on who needs to comply with the traceability requirements, what information must be set out in the traceability documents to identify the food, how long traceability documents must be kept and when the documents must be provided, labeling requirements to enable traceability, and also any exceptions. Part 6 covers the commodity-specific requirements. It contains additional requirements for specific foods. If your business is not involved in the following food commodities, you do not need to consider Part 6. These include dairy products, eggs, processed egg products, fish, fresh fruits or vegetables, and meat products and food animals. Part 7 is recognition of foreign systems. Part 8, ministerial exemptions. This part outlines the conditions for obtaining an exemption to some requirements of the SFCA or SFCR. Part 9 outlines inspection legends. This part sets out the conditions for applying and using inspection legends in connection with edible meat products, fish, and processed egg products. Part 10, packaging. This section covers the requirements for food packages. Part 11, labeling. This part combines the food labeling requirements and regulations from the Consumer Packaging and Labeling Act, Canada Agricultural Products Act, Meat Inspection Act, and the Fish Inspection Act. Part 12 covers the specifications for grades and grade names. Part 13 outlines the requirements for organic products. Part 14, seizure and detention. This part consolidates the existing food regulations related to the seizure and detention of foods. It also contains requirements for the use of detention tags, notices of detention, and notices of release. Part 15, transitional provisions. This part sets out the transitional provisions from the current regulations to the SFCR for certain foods and businesses. And lastly, Part 16, consequential amendments, repeals, and coming into force. This section reviews the regulations that will be repealed when the SFCR comes into force. That concludes our overview of the SFCR regulations. I hope this information was useful to you.